everybody, Scott Tutwiler here. So sorry for the no notice on this live stream, but this is a project I've been kind of working on for a while now, and it's a big one, and it's one of those that at the end I'm gonna hopefully have an image that is going to be just next level wow factor. And what I wanted to do was kind of share the process of creating it. And this is not going to be the first video in this series because this is a very complicated project. And I think this will be inspirational for a lot of people to kind of like, wow, I didn't know that that was even like a consideration or a thing that you could do. And we're going to start with what, it's just your standard photo. I say standard photo, but something that's, a little artsy. I'm going to show that in a minute here, but I don't want to spoil it. But we're going to use a lot of 3D elements. We're going to create some items in ZBrush. We're going to create some items in Blender. And then we're going to create that scene. And then we're going to use our Capture One and other photography, Photoshop skills, and so on to combine that together to create the final image. And when we're done, I plan to animate it and create an NFT or non-fungible token from that as well, which then we'll put on probably Foundation, which is where I keep most of my artwork, my NFT. So if you're not on Twitter, by the way, and you want to see some of those on Twitter is where I'm doing most of that communication. I've kind of stopped using Instagram for most things just because no one sees it anyway. And I just find that to be really nice interplay back and forth. It's kind of like the way that Flickr used to be years ago, where you have a community. And I'm really I didn't know that Twitter was like that, so I kind of blown it off for years, but I'm really getting into it recently. All right, so let's talk about this project. The big thing about this is that the International Print Competition is coming up here in, I think, a month and a half. And I don't want to leak this image because if they know who the maker is, then they can't judge it. So I have to be upfront and say, if you are a judge for International Print Competition, do not watch this video or any of this series. And the thumbnails are going to be a little nondescript for a while. So if you are watching this and you're into this type of subject matter, then you're going to like it. But just be aware that this image is not something that's going to be kind of out there until after that judging, because I plan to take this image as far as I can, and maybe it'll get a merit. I'm certainly hopeful it will. So far, I love what I have, and I think you're going to be blown away by it. So let's talk about, first of all, what it is and where we're going to go with it. What I did is I body painted a friend of mine, Haley, who I've painted her so many times. There's actually a video on this channel of me painting her with like a fall or autumn scene. And I painted her all silver, and I want to add some wings to her, but I don't want to add like your regular wings. I want to create something unique. So I started looking at wings. So this is an application, a great application called PureRef, by the way. And it allows you to kind of have a reference window open that you can move around, and it floats over everything. And you can double click on things and go in and kind of look at reference that you may have collected off the interwebs and say, wow, that's what I was looking for. But it's a nice way to kind of keep track of a bunch of stuff. So if you're not familiar with this application, it's great. It's free. And this is where you go to get it. It's just pureref.com. So I know it's obscure to start with a piece of software, but this piece of software is so good. If you're into art and you're trying to make something look like something else, this application is one I would highly recommend. Anyway, so move that out of the way here. It does have some controls to take getting used to, and like the right mouse button must be held down to move it. All right. So the next thing is some of the costume that Haley was wearing involves these mesh rings. So this is a part of a larger outfit, or pieces of an outfit, I should say, that the designer is making. And I don't want to mention the designer yet either, because I can't really have this wandering around the web until I get it done. But I wanted to share it with my viewers of this channel because, again, this project is going to be pretty cool. So I'm using those wings, and this is kind of inspiration. Okay, so here's the body paint of Haley. I've removed the naughty parts for the sake of YouTube. But you see, this is the body paint, and this is unretouched, straight out of camera. You can see still have the dirt on the walls, and I did not paint her shins or anything lower. I knew when going into this kind of what I wanted to do. So this is the body paint, and then this is the wings that I have made so far. Now this is ZBrush, and if you're not familiar with ZBrush, this is a virtual clay modeling application, and this is the same application that was used to make most of the characters, well, all the characters in the Avengers or Game of Thrones, the dragons. It's a clay modeling application, and you basically go in here and you sculpt on something, and you make it look how you want it to look. And these are the wings that I have made in here so far. And I'm not going to cover this process because, first of all, I'm not an expert at ZBrush. I've been using this for probably about 4 years or so, 3 or 4 years on and off, and it is a beast of an application. It is one of the most obscure interfaces there is. I mean, first of all, everything goes vertically this way, and then all these menus expand. So all these are menus, and each one has more options and more options. And there's so much in here that, I mean, really, it's its own thing. And there's a lot of people that do great ZBrush videos here on YouTube, but I'm not one of them. Not one to pick my battles. This is not one that I'm going to profess to be an expert at by any stretch, but I'm okay. And I was able to make this. This probably represents I don't know how many hours of work. It's come and gone in many iterations, but I wanted to show you where it started in what I have done so far. So the idea is to have 3 areas of the wing. So this is actually upside down here. So we've got the bottom part, which is kind of a like metal structure, or at least that's how I'm imagining it to go with the chrome. And then all these panels inside of here, I'm imagining are kind of like a thin glass, almost like a bubble type material that would have a, what's that, where you get the separation of light that kind of comes through. So you see a bit of the spectrum that gets separated by this. So kind of like the film on a bubble. And then this is the main section of the wing here. So I imagine this is kind of like a, almost a fabric of sorts, but I have to figure out what color I really want yet. And we're going to do a lot of the material work yet. You know, I haven't done so much other than get the structure kind of made, which would have been tedious to watch anyway. But then I want to do is take those chains that are on her head and put them inside the structure of this main wing here, so that it kind of ties the two together. Otherwise, it's just random wings on some girl painted silver. It doesn't really make any sense. So those chain links are going to go in here. And then the upper part of the wing here is very similar to the bottom in that it's metal, but I'm going to create these panels kind of out here on these sticks. So this is the way that I've kind of designed it so far. And I'm quite happy with it. I mean, it's turned out very well. But I want to show you the ZBrush part. And this is this application's really great. It is hell to learn. As I say, I've been working on this thing forever, and I mean, there's so many menus everywhere to play with. It's just a never-ending battle, and they keep adding to it. The really cool thing about this application, though, is once you buy it, they have never charged for an upgrade since 2012. So once you buy it, it's yours. I think it's like $800 or something like that. But talk about a really great application, industry standard, really, for in the CG universe. Movie props, things like that. I've made a lot of stuff with my 3D printer in here as well. So pretty cool application. All right, so let's get out of ZBrush here and let's go to Blender. So Blender is a free application that is a 3D modeling. And where did it go? I had it open. I swear I did. Looks like it died. Let me go get Blender here. And Blender is kind of the core component of this entire thing. So we're going to use this one. All right, so here we go. So this is what I have done so far. I have brought the wings in from ZBrush. I've mirrored them, and they're mirrored virtually, by the way, so that I don't have to make two wings that are the same. So really, this is all we're looking at. The other wing is just simply a mirror object of it. And I'm not an expert at Blender either, but I can use it relatively well. So I will talk about some of the process that I go through in here. It does take me a minute to transition my brain from using ZBrush to this because they use completely different controls for navigation. Well, Blender is free, so if you like what you're playing with in here, it is a free application, and again, amazing for what it is. For how much it costs, it's nothing. So what I want to do in here, and I've actually already started on it, and I was going to do that today. Let's back up a version here. Let's go to 5. There we go. And so this, what we're doing here is we're going to start and we're going to work on these wings today a bit. I thought we'd work on them together. This is representing her body, which will cast a shadow onto the wings, and I just need kind of a form. So we're just going to hide that just to kind of get it out of the way. But what I want to do is, this is what the sculpting I had done in ZBrush, and I brought it into Blender. Now, the reason I'm not continuing to sculpt in ZBrush is because this is almost 100,000 polygons, and I can easily get up to 20 million inside of ZBrush, and Blender can't do 20 million. It would fail. So I wanted to get it relatively close, then come in here and then make it look good enough inside of Blender that I'm happy with it. So what that process is going to involve is we're going to sculpt a bit on these using the Blender sculpting interface instead of ZBrush, because most of the heavy lifting was done. Now up here, you'll see that I've already got the chain mesh done, and what this is a chain, or it's just a simple polygon with many faces. In fact, let's find it here. And if you're not familiar with this application over time, I'm sure you will be, because it's one of those that I use all the time, and very handy, very handy. So let's take off these. So all this is a bunch of vertices like this. It's the back side of the wing. So it's just a bunch of vertices on that have been stretched across this wing in a way to allow me to to kind of see it through the front but not through the back. And you see it's not perfectly laying on there. It was kind of a bear to get it on there, but it's basically a piece of cloth. So I'm using a cloth simulation here so that it will kind of lay how I want it to lay across that part of the mesh. And then what I did is I made a little tiny link right here. And all it is 2 rings that are joined together. And these 2 rings comprise all of that previous, where is it? I guess I closed it already. I don't know where it went. All those previous pieces of chain link that are on Haley's head are all comprised of these rings here. So what I want to do is take those, and I simply said, put those everywhere there's a vertices on here. And that's really how this whole thing came into being. So not very complicated, but at the end, it looks exactly like how I want it to look. All these pieces interlock nicely. It's got a nice fabric feel to it. And you can see that from the ZBrush, which gets these nice ripples and tears across, or not tears so much, but these ripples across this. There's a bit of a problem there. I'm still working on leveling this piece of fabric out. As you can see, there's a few issues where I have kind of a problem child in that my mesh here has stuck through some of that. So I have to kind of pull those things out a bit, and I'm just using proportional editing here to pull those out a bit. Here we go. So now they don't stick through so much. So that's the kind of fiddling I'm doing right now to try and get that right. And you see there's a bunch more I have to do up here, but I wasn't worried about this so much because of the body that will be standing in front of it. Although I will probably change this, because when I'm done, I plan to have quite a few different pieces of this outfit available for other images from this set. We had a lot of great imagery, and I think it would be remiss of me to not use more of those for other other images in the set. So I'm just going to take a few of these here and pull them through. I'm not an expert at Blender by any stretch. I think I'm pretty confident in it. I can get most of what I need to get done without much of a problem. There's probably easier ways for me to do many of these different processes, but in the end, if I get what I want out of it, then do I care if I did it the most efficient way? No, maybe a little bit, but yeah. It's not my chosen profession. You know, it's one of those skills that I have that I can offer to clients to say I can do 3D stuff for you if you would like, and I have had a few clients that I do 3D stuff for. But yeah, so we've got problems with the rings coming through those. So I just got to get to the point where those meshes no longer interface like that. So once we get that done, then I want to do is I want to go through and add materials, which I've started doing. So again, if you're not familiar with Blender, this is going to be kind of a mind-blowing part of the process here because there's a lot going on here. But here's the wings, and what I did is I created some different environments so we can view them. And I need to go and turn the transparent off, so you can kind of see them. So there's a background here that is not really in the scene. It's just allowing me to see the wings, so you guys can see what they're going to look like when they're fully rendered. And this kind of gives you an idea of where I'm going with it. So the wings themselves are comprised of these metal panels here. So this metal is represented by this material here, which is just a very simple metal. Is this the material I have? You know what it looks like? All the materials that I had. Oh, there was. I should say all the materials I have are gone now, but that doesn't make sense. So this here is simply a metallic. So metallic is set on, and then I can choose what color I want it to be. So whether I want it to be black, base, or whatever. I was thinking to be kind of grayish to resemble her body. And then so metallic is always 0 or 1, right? There's no, even though you can put it in the middle, you shouldn't. It's either 0 or 1. So it's a metal thing. It's specular. It's a little rough because nothing is really 100% mirror-like. I mean, even a mirror really has a little bit of roughness to it. So that's what I came up with for that material and what it looks like. And I think that looks pretty good. You can see it reflects the environment pretty well, and it looks nice enough. Like obviously this is a rough render. What we're seeing when we do the final render will look a lot smoother. And then these panels here are the next part that I was trying to play with. So I did something funny here in that I took what's called the normal, which is just basically showing the direction of how light would interface with this object, so that later on, when it's spinning in 3D and put in a much larger scene, it won't have all the lighting already on it. It will interpret the lighting in the scene. But I really kind of like this design on here. So I did is I just took it and put it into a hue and saturation adjustment layer, and then put all that through here. So I can actually adjust that so I can see the normal color, just because I liked it. And no other reason for that, but that's how I went with it. So yeah, it's just kind of that bluish color. Now in the end, I'm probably going to end up making this image black and white, just simply because the body paint is that color, and I can see it being a problem if I do it another way. I don't know. Anyway, so there's other wing areas in here too, which I haven't done anything with, so it's very easy to go in and say, well, I'm going to make those. I think I should stay with kind of a monochromatic palette. I don't think I want to add like a red in here, but I certainly could. Also, let's just pick a random color here, and again, they're metallic, and they're hey, somebody joined. Thank you, Andrew. Welcome to the channel. So this fabric here, whatever this is, like I was thinking, do I want it to be clear? No, I could have it be clear, which obviously if I turn this on right now, it's not going to look very good, but do I want it to be clear so I can see through it? I still have decisions like that to make. And as we go through this, I'm probably going to ask your opinion, because this is one of those projects where I'm thinking, wow, I really like where I'm going, but I want it to be a crowd pleaser as well, because this is a piece of art and I plan to sell it when I'm done with it. So that's one of those things that weighs into my decision. This is not shaded smooth. There we go. That looks a lot better. Now you can see I still have some gaps here, and this is from when I was doing all the sculpting in ZBrush and figuring out how I wanted these panels to look. Again, it's a creative process at this point. It's not really a technical process. I also want to add more horns to these parts of the wing. Like this horn is pointing down. I kind of want to bring it up like this, like these. So I thought we'd do some of that today. And then this middle wing here, I think is pretty much done. Like I like it. It's good enough. The middle panel here is again using that with the normal. And then the rings are just simply a specular metallic that are not quite white. And then this upper one here, whatever this is going to be, I think these are going to be a lot more detailed. I'm thinking about doing something in here to create different color splotches, like blues and purples and so on. Almost look like stained glass when we're done. So I'll probably end up doing something like that in here, building a shader like that. And then I'll make those shaders available if you guys want them. I mean, they're not going to be very interesting on their own, but you never know. They might be interesting for people. But anyway, so that's what we're going to do there. And then ultimately, we're going to put that body painted girl here, and we're going to then start rendering it. I also plan to do some flowers along the bottom. So I'm going to make some metal daisies, some different flowers that are metal. So the whole idea is that she's this, as the title implies, iron butterfly is kind of the what I'm calling it right now. But she's obviously, these wings aren't really for flight, but so she's going to be standing in a field of metal daisies with other little butterflies around her that are made of metal. And I've got some plans for a big stormy looking sky, and that's really how the project is going to unfold. But today, and again, we're going to do a bit of a live stream here. I'm not going to dedicate hours to this because I'm sure this would be a nap for everybody. But see, there I am stuck in that. I try and use my pen in Blender, and it's really not meant for a pen. It's meant for this middle mouse button thing. And in ZBrush, you use your Alt key. So it takes me a minute to kind of remember, oh yeah, that's right. So now I can pick my pen up. And what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to start with some of these objects in here, and I need to sculpt on them. So in order to do that, we just find it in here, select it, and then I'm going to select all these objects in here, just to kind of have them all, and then solo them, which is the slash key next to the shift key. That way, they're everything else is turned off, and I'm not staring at it. And then I can select, say, just this object which is all the rigging here. Let's say rigging as in the metal parts that hold all this together. We will eventually be rigging this, but I haven't really decided what I want to do with that yet. And you see I still have a few things that kind of got a little squirrely as they came out of ZBrush, but I'm just using the smooth brush here, and I'm going to go around, and what I want to do is make this look a little more organic. So I want these to be a lot more, what's I'm looking for? I want them to feel a lot more tenuous, like they're barely there in some places. Like, wow, how is that even structurally sound? You know, that just makes it more interesting to me. So things like this. So again, this would be a lot easier to do in ZBrush. ZBrush is meant for this, but it will make literally millions of polygons, and then Blender would choke and die, and then I wouldn't be able to do anything in here. So I'm just going to do it this way. So I just want these to be kind of nice. I do like this little fillet that's happening when I smooth over those. But yeah, this is what we're doing. I do have some other areas here that are wonky. I know that when I'm done here, I'm going to have to go back and improve some of those other areas where I've got these panels aren't quite right. I know it's going to happen. It's part of the discovery process. But this is helping me kind of smooth out my roughness from ZBrush. I think the sculpture parts of Blender are getting there. I wish they were the same as ZBrush, because I've been using that application for years, and I know Blender's had sculpting, but it hasn't really had it in a way that I thought was serious. You know, the longest time I was considering whether I was going to learn Mudbox or ZBrush, and I'm really glad that I learned ZBrush. Well, learned it as well as I know it, I should say. So this, I think, looks nicer. It's a lot more cohesive. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments here. I think I have my chat turned on so I can actually see things. Yeah, should be able to see comments as they come in, I think. Yeah. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is just kind of go around this rigging here and talk about the project a bit, so it's not just me working in ZBrush here, or in Blender. So I've had big plans for projects like this for a while, and I really haven't implemented one, and it's nice to actually try one. I'm still working on that neon project, by the way. We've got another shoot set up with her, with Cecilia, coming up soon. I had some other scenes that I wanted to do, and I didn't really think through what I should have thought through when I shot her the first time, and then I was like, oh, sad panda, I should have done this and this, and because she's not far away, and I reached out to her, and she goes, she'd love to shoot more from that scene. So you'll be seeing that project coming along here as well. I know if you've been following this channel for a while, you're probably like, what happened to that thing? It's still around. I've been working on 3D assets for that as well, and that's another part of this whole thing, is adding 3D to my photography to create some of these additional things that I wouldn't have been able to do just straight out of the camera because these assets don't exist, right? And that's part of the challenge here. Is I want stuff that I don't have. You know, I want some scenes that I don't have the ability to create physically. I am making a new boudoir suite in the studio, and I didn't know if that was going to be something fun that you guys want to watch me make in this on this channel or not. Looks like those aren't touching. That's okay. Okay, so that's kind of the first part of this that I wanted to get done, was get that stuff looking better. And I think that looks a lot better. It looks more like sails, which is kind of what I was hoping for. Okay, then I want to use the snake hook here, and we're going to do is kind of the same thing I would do in ZBrush. Is I want to take and drag these out a bit. Yeah, I want to do this way. I think trying to find out which side I want to work on and how I want to work on it here. That's the other problem, is you can't really zoom in with the pen. So what I'm going to do is I want to, I'm not familiar with so many of these sculpting tools on here as I said with ZBrush, but I'm going to try and do my best to make this same. What I want to do is I want to take the snake hook here and I want to drag out some of these spikes a bit more. Like over here, make a new spike that it's a bit too much. Isn't it right clicking? It is not right clicking. It is the left clicking here. Sorry. Strength is way down. Something like this. So it looks more like a spike kind of thing. I'm gonna use my mouse for this. This is for the birds. Trying to use a pen tablet and ZBrush is really icky. Something like this. That matches this one, and then I want to turn that one up, and it's this tool. This, and then snake hook this one as well. Let's make her look a little more interesting. This is not quite right. This is still weird. What tool is this? It is a weird tool. Okay, then I think I'm going to do lots of little spikes in here as well. I haven't really decided yet, but maybe like on the back of this one here. Might be kind of cool. So let's do that. We want a small radius, I think. Is that how you use this thing? Look at that. Tearing. That's not what. Let's do it this way. With more radius. Alright, so maybe this is not going to be as easy as I thought it was going to be. No, that's okay though. I mean, that's not terrible. It's a place to start, right? So if we make a bunch of these. I reserve the right to change my mind on this. Now they're all going the wrong way. Let's do it this way. This is where ZBrush is so much easier to use for sculpting. I mean, I get that they're trying to add this to the product, but it needs some love yet. Something like this. Then we should be able to smooth that out. There. I think that'll work. Let's go find out. Let's go to shading. Yeah, it's a nice little detail. Makes her look more like a wicked moth person. Yeah, I like it. So then the next project will be to take and work on this structure up here. That's the same idea. So my whole project is going to be sculpting on this, getting this wing shape how I want it, and then I'm going to have to go back and stretch these out. But I wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up on what I'm doing here, and if you had any questions or comments. This is going to be a bigger project, but integrating 2D things into a 3D project I thought would be pretty interesting. And as we go along, I think it's all going to come together. I've already done a few preliminary renders and thrown them into Photoshop with the model, and I really like what I see. So now it's just a matter of getting it to the point where we're polishing it off and perfecting the project so that it makes more sense. You know, because right now it's still really rough, but it really shows the ability for us to take 3D objects and other assets that maybe don't exist and add them into our photography projects. Yes, a completely different skill set, but I also see this as an important one because as we move forward, you know, augmented reality and VR, things like that are becoming very real in our world. And photography, you know, it can be displayed in those worlds, but to augment it with this type of a skill set, I think is important for well-roundedness. So anyway, so that's kind of what I'm doing, and I wanted to give you kind of a heads up on it because I felt that it was interesting, and it's different, you know, and that's kind of what we're doing here. So I'll probably end up posting a smaller video of this live stream just so people can kind of get the idea. But again, I'm going to wait a couple of weeks until after the IPC, and then we'll see how this does. Assuming this image gets done before the International Print Competition, then you guys will have seen how it came about. Anyway, so that's all I wanted to do is cover this today and kind of let you know what's going on here. So I hope to get another video here in a couple days with more on this. As I say, I've got quite a few different steps I want to get done here, but as we get each one done, the image is going to start to become more polished. And I think it's already come quite a ways from, you know, where it was just a couple days ago when I had sketched this wing out using the Pure Ref, got into ZBrush, started messing around, and then got to this point. So anyway, that's all I had for today. Everybody take care, stay safe.